Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate.
Andrew Tate.
Controversial influencer Andrew Tate was arrested earlier this month in Romania.
Online influencer Andrew Tate.
I delved deep into the world of Andrew Tate, watching every single video until I could work out why he's so popular amongst young men. What I uncovered is going to provide you with a unique perspective that you won't find anywhere else. I'm Zach Hassan, a medical doctor who's also debated issues just like this at the Cambridge Union, one of Britain's most prestigious debating societies. I'm breaking down one of the biggest debates on the internet right now, and I'm going to analyse Tate's arguments objectively, trying to weigh the good and bad fairly. But before we dive in, I've got to answer one key question. Why am I doing this? Well, there was a time in my life where Tate's content would have really appealed to insecurities that I had. I feel it's important to explain exactly what I found missing in those ideas, in case that helps other young men now. So, let's get started. Now, at the time of recording, Andrew Tate is under house arrest. This is a far cry from his former status as a kickboxing champion who rose to prominence in the manosphere. How? By challenging liberal tropes about gender equality.
I don't know that dude. I might wake him up and he's a fucking liberal.
To his supporters, he's a victim of an establishment conspiracy, while to his critics, he's a dangerous symbol of toxic masculinity. But this video isn't about the controversy surrounding him. Instead, my focus is on trying to understand how his message affects the young men who are exposed to it. By the end of this video, I'm hoping you'll gain a deeper understanding of the nuanced debate surrounding masculinity and develop critical thinking skills to evaluate similar issues. We're going to explore 4 critical questions. 1. What problems make young men turn to Tate's ideas? 2. What are Tate's key arguments? 3. Are Tate's solutions for young men flawed? And 4. How can society create compelling alternative solutions for men's issues? So first, what problems make young men turn to Tate's ideas? Tate's content appeals to men experiencing one of 3 very clear problems. Number 1. School and work underperformance. Young men today have harder lives than previous generations and often don't receive encouragement to address their unique struggles. The facts are well known about this already. Studies have shown boys are underperforming in schools compared to girls since 1981, which has implications for their future job prospects. Let's put this in perspective. The gender divide in education is nearly as significant as the race divide in America. Without the educational achievements of women, blue-collar workers especially face lives of demanding physical labour with poor rewards. This also becomes problematic because it affects men's ability to find a partner. Sociological research shows that women have higher expectations for men's income and social status than men do for women's. In general, while women receive interest from men regardless of their careers, men who lose their jobs are more likely to be left by their partners.
You're fired.
The result of this is a world where increasing numbers of men struggle to achieve a family life that meets their emotional needs, and this is a problem we are barely talking about. It's concerning to me, especially when considering high suicide rates amongst men, who are already less likely to seek help for their mental health. Problem number 2 is that men are facing mixed messages about what it means to be a man. This led David Cunliffe, New Zealand's Labour Party leader, to declare in 2014,
I don't often say it. I'm sorry for being a man.
Can we imagine how bad it would be if a female leader felt they had to apologise for being a woman? Instead, men face ambiguity about the benefits of discarding traditional gender norms, unlike for women. So, for example, in my career, I work with many women who are excelling in the workplace and have broken down barriers in order to get into the careers they have. But it's more difficult for men to go the opposite way now. So for example, if I were to choose to be a stay-at-home dad, I would be subject to stigma and ridicule for that. That's not true gender equality. However, men also receive conflicting signals about whether success is something to strive for or whether to criticise as a symptom of male privilege. Society has 2 clear options to present men with successful role models. that encompass various aspects of masculinity. That would allow young men to choose their own path without the pressure to conform to a narrow idea that men are only valued for their income and status. But instead, we leave a gap for Tate to advocate the other, attractively straightforward solution. A return to a nostalgic view of masculinity where men should be strong, confident providers with no room for anything else. Problem number 3 is the pain of rejection. Romantic rejection serves as the most powerful emotional hook that draws young men into Andrew Tate's content. High-profile Andrew Tate fans Sonny Vaz and Aidan Ross openly admit to what pushed them in Andrew Tate's direction was being rejected by a girl they liked. These are just young men that just want to find out how to make themselves good enough to be a romantic partner. It's upsetting for me. I relate to it, and I can see why they see a solution in Tate, because of the image that he projects of having that problem solved. The emotional pain of rejection helps Andrew Tate connect with his audience because it provides a sense of understanding and validation for their struggles. You're going to think this person's speaking for you, and that's what Andrew Tate has done so successfully. What about the worries about male privilege? I think the men in this situation are in need of empathy, not belittling. If you're someone who's concerned about that, I think a lack of empathy for young men's motivations for watching Andrew Tate is going to risk driving more people towards his direction, and that would be totally counterproductive to what you want. Instead, I think we need open and honest conversations that address these 3 problems: job dissatisfaction, a lack of a positive story about masculinity, and romantic rejection. That's crucial. Society has to be more understanding towards young men's struggles, because only when we bring men's difficulties out of the shadows of stigma into the light of rational debate can we hope to solve them. This brings us on to what Tate's key arguments are. The real battleground isn't happening online but in schools.
And a boy in her class said, "I'm not going to be taught by a woman." Whoa.
No matter how many teachers dismiss Tate as a misogynist or as criminal or as dangerous, if we don't try to understand his arguments, then we won't understand how exactly he's appealing to teenage boys. So, what is he saying? The first thing is about gender differences, and his core logical arguments revolve around the notion that men and women are inherently different.
I think the biggest problems with the world today is that everybody is trying to pretend that they're interchangeably as good as each other at the same things, and that's destroying the teamwork.
To be fair to Tate, he never claims that this is how it should be, or that it's good that it's that way. He only says this is how it is, and says to young men that they need to understand that if they want to be successful. Now, to make this argument more eloquently, he frequently uses the example of an exclusive boat party for high-status people. Tate claims that to be invited, the men on that boat have to be rich or famous, whereas women need only to look attractive.
Been on boats in Dubai with 19-year-old Moldovan girls. The guy who got that boat needed $100 million. That bitch, makeup, same boat, bro, same boat.
He's essentially saying that most men are getting a raw deal. He asserts that men have to work harder to gain the qualities valued by women, like success, confidence, and physicality, while women primarily just need to be attractive to achieve the same status. Additionally, Tate supports traditional gender roles, saying women need to be looked after like children.
Women have to be monitored and maintained and maintained effectively like a child would when it comes to
Not
traveling.
like a child.
Yeah, same, exactly the same.
Expecting women to perform tasks such as making coffee and steak upon his request, while he takes on the responsibility of providing and protecting.
Else, I would engage the invader and die. Please just cook dinner, please.
He claims that this, at its heart, is an exchange of equal value. Women get attention and protection in a relationship, while men get sex and validation. Andrew Tate also uses this viewpoint to explain the friend zone phenomenon as what happens when a man refuses to assist on sex while giving away his attention for free. He says that male infidelity isn't as serious as female infidelity, arguing that male polygamy is a natural human state, while for women this breaks loyalty.
Since the dawn of human time, every single king, every single sultan, all of them had more than one chick. That's actually the natural human state.
This is the main reason that Tate is viewed as a misogynist by wider society, but it's also his arguments about gender that are so popular with young men. Now, despite the obviously controversial nature of these arguments, we need to understand that young men who feel lost or rejected can find them compelling because they provide clear explanations and actionable solutions to their problems. Can't get a girlfriend? Well, maybe it's because I need to be more traditionally masculine. He justifies those views by claiming that embracing these gender differences is the key to achieving success in relationships, with men needing to display strength, dominance, and status if they are going to be liked by women. And what happens if they don't?
Now, there are some dudes out there who are going to disagree with me, but those are dudes, they got low testosterone, they're not the big G, they ain't got no money, they ain't nothing, right?
Tate is therefore presenting young men with a potent dilemma. To receive love, you must abandon a gender equality approach, stop being nice, and embrace his version of masculinity. Reject his ideas, and you'll continue to be a loser forever in the friend zone. A pretty hard dilemma to ignore if you're emotionally vulnerable from rejection. Now, Tate's second argument is about competition. It's this core message of self-improvement in a competitive world that has teenage boys adopting Andrew Tate as their martyr for masculinity. Success in various aspects of life, such as money, relationships, and status, comes from ruthlessly outcompeting other men. Andrew Tate believes that unhappy men are simply losers in the game of life, and his solution is to work hard, be disciplined, and put emotions aside in order to become a high-value man that women desire.
Every fucking day, I don't feel like doing things that I still do. It's called discipline. It's called being a man.
YouTube personalities Aidan Ross and Sonny Vaz serve as real-life case studies of Andrew Tate's influence. Both claim to have experienced positive changes in their lives after adopting Tate's philosophy, hitting the gym, standing up for themselves, and no longer being wallflowers.
You have changed my life in a better way, and I'm really starting to take my life seriously this time.
And the most important thing to notice is that that appeal relies on the image he projects of this wealthy, powerful figure who never has a problem getting a girl. And the idea that any young man can be like that too if they embrace his ideas is powerful. And that brings us on to the question of whether Tate's solution is flawed, because it would be devastating to young men if embracing Tate's ideas was actually going to make it more difficult for them to find a fulfilling relationship. And in the long run, I think Tate's logic will run you into three huge problems. 1. Negativity towards women. Andrew Tate's gender stereotypes and portrayal of access to many women being a trophy of male success can hinder men from developing genuine, respectful connections with the opposite sex. To be fair to the Tate brothers, they try to distance themselves from claims that they encourage misogyny by saying that A. Teenage boys misinterpret a lot of things, and B. telling stories of the good treatment they give to women they are close to. These are weak defences because they say so much other stuff that nudges people towards a negative attitude to women.
The other day I was talking to some chick, story of my life. She's talking shit, obviously, about how she wants to run a makeup company.
In fact, in doing this, they're using the same tactic as Marine Le Pen, the leader of the French far-right political party, the Front National. She denies that the party is racist, while at the same time using emotional rhetoric which appeals to racist sentiments. To me, this honestly seems like somebody giving their friend a can of petrol while standing next to fire, then denying any responsibility when someone gets burned. As young men, we should want to build healthy relationships with women, and negativity towards them will only strain your interactions and inhibit your personal growth. We need to remember there's something fundamentally wrong when men dislike women or vice versa, but there's another reason Tate's logic might make that personal growth more difficult. Tate's narrow definition of masculinity neglects positive aspects of manhood and overlooks alternative routes to attractiveness, success, and fame. For me, a broader definition of masculinity should emphasise collaboration and emotional intelligence. That would have been a much better message for me to hear earlier in my life. This is an important idea in the book, The Boy Crisis. One of the facts I love from the book is that the amount of a father's involvement is one of the top 4 factors predicting children's empathy by age 31. Other studies show that rejecting narrow definitions of masculinity reduces rates of depression. So by contrast, Tate's derisive approach towards any aspects of masculinity that could be deemed soft or empathetic limits men's abilities to form solid relationships. Although Tate endorses fatherhood when he says that,
I can come home every 2 weeks with a story. Boom. And he'll be like, that's the boss.
he fails to flesh out the father's role in emotional development, play, and encouragement, which you can't do without embracing these other qualities. And that makes me wonder, why is Tate so reluctant to do that? That brings us on to the next weakness. The third problem is insecurity. Andrew Tate's message often emphasises dealing with insecurity by chasing external factors, not least because he mocks people that don't have that.
I want a guy who's sweet and sensitive and takes care of my needs and thinks about me, blah, blah, blah. And then they get them and they leave the dude.
Trying to reach a higher status as a way of fixing insecurity, I think, is a bad idea. Although we think we will be happy with more success, often that doesn't turn out to be the case. Taken to its end point, this argument leads to a never-ending cycle of seeking validation through achievement without truly addressing the root cause of the problem. For me, a more effective message for me to have heard would have been, yeah, go to the gym, work hard, like those things are good, but it's also crucial to work on your personal insecurities, build your own self-esteem, rather than rely on external things. Here's something a psychologist thought about Andrew Tate's interviews that has me wondering if he's avoiding his own internal obstacles.
The other thing I'm hearing from him is resentment. He has a tremendous amount of anger and rage at women, seemingly. Anger and distress around how women have power.
So what's my verdict on Andrew Tate? Does Andrew Tate say some positive things I agree with? Yes. His points about self-reliance, people working to better themselves, and rebounding from difficulty are something that nobody sensible should disagree about. But there's a but. I honestly don't think his solution would have been a good long-term one for me. I find it to be a deeply flawed message that encourages men looking for solutions to their problems to sacrifice important parts of their masculinity, and the metrics of success he is projecting is something I find morally reprehensible. And it may be that with Andrew Tate's conversion to Islam, he begins to feel the same way. The message of self-improvement and competition needs to be balanced against the need for men to be warm and kind. The ideal man should be capable of connecting emotionally with women, should be able to reach their goals through cooperation as much as competition, and should be the best supporters of women rather than their detractors. At best, I think Andrew Tate is neglecting these things that don't get talked about. At worst, he's achieved personal gain by preying on men's insecurities with solutions that don't even work. Overall, Andrew Tate and his message highlights the need to take men's difficulties seriously and offer them alternative choices to address their problems before it's too late. Now let me know what you think of this video in the comments. By watching, I hope you can support a more positive, holistic view of masculinity than what young men can currently find on the internet. Give the video a like if you did, and if you hated it, I want to know why. Leave me a comment.